Welcome to the Scottish Rite Journal podcast, an audio presentation of the Scottish Rite Journal, brought to you by the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite, Southern Jurisdiction, Mother Supreme Council of the World. This week's article is Melodies, Immortal, Echoes of Paradise, Masonic Composers of Light and Comic Opera by Reba Winstead and comes from the May-June 2024 issue of the Scottish Rite Journal. You are my song of love. Melody Immortal, Echo of Paradise, heard through heaven's portal. Blossom Time, operetta adapted by Brother Sigmund Romberg, 32nd degree, from the Melodies of Franz Schubert. Within the historical fellowship of Freemasonry, there are a great many composers who have been recognized as having Masonic stories to tell through their compositions and productions. Some are well known for this achievement, such as Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, who brought Masonic ideals and symbols into his singspiel of opera and comic dialogue, The Magic Flute. Franz Joseph Haydn, Franz Liszt, and John Sibelius were also famous composers who were Masons. Others, whose popularity has been lost to the passing of time, may be more obscure, but they too have demonstrated the continuity of Masonry and classical music. The Opera House was a place in which Masonic composers flourished and new musical ideas spread, including comic opera. Here we can point to none other than Sir William W. S. Gilbert, lyricist, and Sir Arthur Sullivan, composer. Through their light operas and their use of English instead of Italian, the traditional language of opera, operatic music was brought to a wider audience. Masonry makes an appearance in their final comic opera collaboration, The Grand Duke, or The Statutory Duel, in which there is talk about tiling a dodgy secret society as Gilbert and Sullivan have fun presenting their noble Masonic fraternity topsy-turvy, i.e. the opposite of what it actually is. Joseph Sorge, music director of the Maryland-based Victorian Lyric Opera Company, which has held 2 productions and made a CD sound recording of the Grand Duke, comments. The basic story of the Grand Duke is a troupe of actors plotting to overthrow, comically of course, Grand Duke Randolph of the Grand Duchy of Fenning-Hopfenning in a bloodless coup. The secret society is a reference to those in the theater company who are involved in the conspiracy. Ludwig, the leader of the attempted coup d'etat, admonishes his actors to be wary of spies in the song By the Mystic Regulation of Our Dark Association. It turns out that the secret sign of the conspirators is merely the act of eating a sausage roll when offered. Maestro Sorge considers The Grand Duke to be one of Sullivan's greatest musical scores. In addition to brothers Gilbert and Sullivan, another British Masonic light and comic opera composer is Thomas Arne. Brother Arne mostly composed light operas in the same epoch as Mozart, including the Masque Alfred, about Alfred the Great, which included the song Rule Britannia, which would go on to become a noted patriotic British anthem. It may surprise U.S. Masons that their own Brother John Philip Sousa, known as America's March King and famous for the Stars and Stripes Forever, composed 15 comic operas, including El Capitan, set in Peru during the Spanish colonial era and replete with misunderstandings and convoluted plots that are the stuff of operetta. Sousa's Masonic music, however, is largely to be found in his marches, namely The Thunderer, written for the Knights Templar, and The Nobles of the Mystic Shrine March, written for Alma Shrine of Washington, D.C., of which Sousa was a member. One noted Masonic composer of operettas who may be of special interest to journal readers is Brother Sigmund Romberg, 32nd degree, who was a Southern Jurisdiction Scottish Rite Mason. He entered the Blue Lodge in Perfect Ashlar number 604 under the Grand Lodge of New York and received his Scottish Rite degrees by communication from Dr. E. Cordell Powers on October 25, 1946 at the Baltimore, Maryland, Scottish Rite. Brother Romberg was born in Hungary, later immigrating to the U.S. He relinquished an education in engineering and began writing operettas in the Viennese style of Johann Strauss II and Franz Lehár. Yet he also composed musicals for Brother Al Jolson, among others, in the style of the Broadway musical. Among Brother Romberg's famous operettas were The Student Prince, The Desert Song, and The New Moon. The New Moon included songs such as Softly in Morning Sunrise and Lover, Come Back to Me, both of which quickly became jazz standards. Romberg also produced the first Viennese operetta known to be written exclusively for a Hollywood film, Vienna Nights. While his music does not contain Masonic references, he appears to have donated music to Masonry by providing the Baltimore Scottish Rite with a pipe organ. In closing our brief survey of Masonic light opera composers, we should note that one can study the correlation of music and Freemasonry within the relatively new field of ethnomusicology. This approach suggests that historians and listeners should not view a piece of music in isolation, but also consider the time, social location, and experiences of the composer to understand a musical work more fully. In other words, composers, both comic opera and otherwise, should have their music understood in the context of broad social and historical movements, including that of Freemasonry. Like and share this article, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you wish to comment, please leave one, and as a reminder, hit the notifications bell. Any accompanying photographs or citations for this article can be found in the corresponding print edition. The Scottish Rite Journal is published by the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite, Southern Jurisdiction, Mother Supreme Council of the World. Mark Dreisenstock, 33rd degree, Managing Editor. I'm your host, Matt Bowers.